Good evening and welcome to a Separate Publishing Group production. I'm Stephen Fidgen, your host. And tonight we're going to be talking about Into the Wilderness, the journey of the second Exodus. I want to thank you for joining us here at Separate Publishing Group. And we want to thank everyone who's in the chat for being a subscriber to this channel. Thank you. It's greatly appreciated. And I just pray that we're going to be able to continue with a good review of what's written in Scripture. We're going to take a look at some of those scriptures tonight. So with that, let us begin. Into the wilderness. The journey of the second Exodus. Behold, the days come, says Yahuah, that I will cut a renewed covenant with the house of Yasharel and with the house of Yehudah, not according to the covenant that I cut with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband unto them, says Yahuah. But this shall be the covenant that I will cut with the house of Yasharel. After those days, says Yahuah, I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuah. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, says Yahuah. I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. Jeremiah 31, verses 31 to 34. Okay, allow me, Carrie, to pray first as we get into this teaching. Baruch atah, Yahuah, Elohai Yasharer, Avinu Olam La'olam. Blessed are you, Yahuah, the Elohim of Yasharer, the Holy One of Yasharer, our Father forever and ever. We lift our prayers to you tonight, Father, in anticipation of this teaching, that your word would go before us and would be instructive unto us, that we might clearly understand what is being said. Thank you for giving this to us in writing. We might be able to see with our eyes and to hear with our ears. Bless our time together tonight in the name of Yahusha. Amen, amen. For thus says Yahuah, sing with gladness for Yaakov, and shout among the chief of the nations. Publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Yahuah, save your people, et the remnant of Yasharel. Behold, I will bring them from the north country, and gather them from the coasts of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child and her that travails with child, together. A great company shall return thither. They shall come with weeping, and with supplications will I lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of water in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Yasharel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Jeremiah 31, 7 through 9. Hear the word of Yahuah, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off. and say, he that scattered Yasharel will gather him and guard him as a shepherd his flock. For Yahuah has redeemed Yaakov and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Therefore, they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of Yahuah, for wheat and for wine and for oil, and for the young of the flock and of the herd. And their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more at all. Then shall the virgin rejoice in the dance, both young men and old together, for I will turn their mourning into joy, and will comfort them, and make them rejoice from their sorrow. And I will satiate the soul of the priests with fatness, and my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, says Yahuah. Yirmiyahu 31, 10 through 13. And in that day, there shall be a root of Yishai, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the other nations seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that Adonai shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Ashur, from Mitzrayim, from Pathros, from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamat, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Yasharel, and gather together the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 11, 10 through 12. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of Yahuah, to the house of Elohai of Yaakov, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of Yahuah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. O house of Yaakov, come ye, and let us walk in the light of Yahuah. Yeshayahu, chapter 2, verses 2 through 5. For thus says Yahuah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask ye now and see whether a man travails with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Yaakov's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahweh Tsebaot, that I will break his yoke from off your neck and will burst your bonds. Strangers shall no longer serve themselves of him, but they shall serve et Yahweh Elohim and et David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore, fear ye not, O my servant Yaakov, says Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Yasharel. For lo, I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Yaakov shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with you, says Yahweh, to save you, though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered you, yet will I not make a full end of you, but I will correct you in measure, and will not leave you altogether unpunished. Yirmeyahu, Jeremiah 30, verses 5 through 11. But I had pity for my holy name, which the house of Yasharel had profaned among the heathen, whither they went. Therefore say unto the house of Yasharel, thus says Adonai Yahweh, I do not this for your sakes, O house of Yasharel, but for my holy name's sake, which ye have profaned among the heathen, whither ye went. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am Yahweh, says Adonai Yahweh, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes. For I will take from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and bring you into your own land. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new Ruach will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my Ruach within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall guard my judgments and do them. And ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. Yechezkel, Ezekiel 36, verses 21 through 28. I will also save you from all your uncleanness, and I will call for the grain and will increase it and lay no famine upon you. And I will multiply the fruit of the tree and the increase of the field, that ye shall receive no more reproach of famine among the heathen. Then shall ye remember your own evil ways and your doings that were not good, and shall loathe yourselves in your own sight for your iniquities and for your abominations. Not for your sakes do I do this, says Adonai Yahweh, be it known unto you. Be ashamed and confounded for your own ways, O house of Yasharel. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, in the day that I shall have cleansed you from all of your iniquities, I will also cause you to dwell in the cities and in the wastes which shall be built, and the desolate land shall be tilled, whereas it lay desolate in the sight of all that passed by. And they shall say, this land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden, and the waste and the desolate and the ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited. Then the heathen that are left round about you shall know that I, Yahweh, build the ruined places and plant that which was desolate. I, Yahweh, have spoken it, and I will do it. Yechezkel 36:29 through 36. In that day will I raise up the sukkah of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom and of all the heathen which are called by my name, says Yahweh that does this. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that sows seed. And the mountain shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Yasharel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof, and they shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given them, says Yahweh Eloheka. Amos 9, verses 11 through 15. And say unto them, thus says Adonai Yahweh, behold, I will take the children of Yasharel from among the heathen, wherever they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Yasharel. And one king shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more two nations. Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. Neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their Elohim. And David, my servant, shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments, and guard my statutes, and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Yaakov, my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. They shall dwell therein, even they, and their children, and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will cut a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their Elohim. They shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, Yahweh, do sanctify Yasharel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. And this concludes our presentation into the wilderness today. With that, we can take questions or comments and see if we can answer some of those questions, although some questions are not going to be answered here today. But I'll try to do what I can with whatever questions we may happen to put up, okay? Whatever questions may come up. So please put your questions in the comment section. Let's see what we see here. Okay. All right. Okay, capitalized questions and comments. Let's see if we have anything here. I want to thank everybody for being here today. And especially those of you who are here from Lancashire in the UK. That happens to be my wife's old family stomping grounds there in Lancashire. And beautiful country. All right. So I want to kind of go through just a couple of things as we look at some questions. There is something that's going to take place, a second gathering of the house of Yasharel. And it's a second gathering that's going to take place on a miraculous basis. And Yah is going to take his people and place them in a place of safety and a place of prosperity where his tabernacle shall be there as well. And we're going to see this I believe in the very near future. So Keep Sticking says, if I noticed any changes in the atmosphere or the weather? Well, actually, I'm going to say yes and no. It's substantially different than it was last year, but last year was inordinate. It's very warm, hot and dry all summer. This year, it's back to what we call typical Alaskan summer, which here we have 2 seasons, winter and maintenance, and we're in maintenance right now, so that's where we are. But in terms of substantial changes in the weather, we're seeing some very interesting things happening on Earth. These are all events that are strictly in the hands of Yah and do not belong to any individual. It's nothing that you are doing or someone else is doing that's causing this. It is Yah that's causing it. Okay. Let's see. Could the Exodus also be a spiritual one? Asked Judy Keel. Yes, the Exodus is essentially and initially a spiritual journey. And of course, the spiritual journey of Exodus is to depart from the ways of Babylon. This is a very, very difficult task because most of us have scar tissue from the Roman collar that's been around our neck. And we don't even recognize how much control there is. But there is a substantial body of control. And in order to be part of the remnant, you must come out from her idolatry and her uncleanness and her iniquity. And the church throughout the world now is preaching lawlessness and iniquity. And this is an incorrect view of the gospel message. While forgiveness is possible, intentional sin brings intentional judgment. And so people need to learn that they must set themselves free from behavior that creates an iniquitous past, and rather create a future that is iniquity free. And that's possible. So Carolyn asks, are all these verses pertaining to the millennial reign? No, they're not pertaining to the millennial reign. Although some of them do pertain to the millennial reign, but the millennial reign is interesting because all the nations on earth will be required to send their males up to Jerusalem after the tribulation, which tells you that the nations are going to survive the tribulation. There will be people surviving the tribulation in every nation. And so this calls for an exodus. So Palad asked, how do you see the wilderness playing out today? Will we be leaving our homes? I think some people will be leaving their homes to embark in the wilderness. But I think also, when we look at the coming persecution that appears to be before us, I think what we have to do is go with what Yah is telling us to do. And for some of us, that's remain where you are for such a time as this. For others, you may be transiting into the wilderness. Okay, so that's something to think about. All right. So, well, thank you, Debbie. I'm glad to help. Now, Rachel Edmond asks, have I heard the Master's voice prophecies with Celestial? Yes, I have, actually. I listen to her quite often. And she gives very difficult prophecies and shows the strident aspects of Yah. Now, with that being said, you have to remember that, like she talks, for instance, about a judgment coming on the United States for the issue of slavery. But I mean, I can tell you that, if we're going to talk about the issue of slavery, slavery began in North America with Irish slaves, not Black Africans, Irish slaves. And the Irish slaves suffered egregiously without any comment. And you don't hear anything from the Irish concerning their slavery, but they did suffer. Then they were followed by African slaves. But the issue of slavery, slavery is condoned in Scripture. It's condoned in Scripture. It's condoned in the Torah that, the pagan, the non-Yasharelim, can be held as an inheritance for children. And this is something that broke away in the modern world with William Wilberforce and others who demanded the end of slavery. And remember that there were 1 million Americans, non-slaves, that gave up their life, almost 1 million, that gave up their life to end slavery in this country. So in her latest prophecy concerning that, I have a disagreement with her in that respect. The iniquity that has been brought on African Americans and has been brought on the indigenous tribes in America has been very difficult, and a lot of it's happened out of the arrogance of the colonizers in the country. Now, not all colonizers were evil, but some of the leaders certainly were. And some of the things that they did, like the Trail of Tears, for instance, done to the Cherokee Nation, was a huge issue of iniquity that did, in fact, bring judgment. And where Celestial says that there will be blood flowing for the blood that flowed in this kind of persecution, well, that's exactly what happened. If you look at, for instance, if you look at the issue of what happened with the Cherokee Nation occupied a southern midsection of Tennessee and the north section of Georgia and Alabama. And that was taken away from the Cherokee Nation, and the Cherokee were forced under the Trail of Tears and repatriated into Oklahoma, and the land was given to settlers. 30 years later, the children of those very same settlers would die in a civil war with the North, and most of them had their property burned by General Sherman, who marched through that very area. So don't think that there was an immediate justice for what happened there. There was, okay? Now, let's see, my thoughts on government. That's a bit too generalized there, Debbie. If you could hone that in a little bit, I can answer it. Okay, why 3,000 dead and 3,000 received axe? Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the Shavuot, and Shavuot is an interesting situation. For those of you who aren't part of the Sabbath group, you can catch the link for the Sabbath group on the way, the World Assembly of Yahuah on Telegram, and you can pick up the Sabbath link, and you're welcome to join us for Sabbath. We're going to be discussing Shavuot this Saturday, and we're going to be talking in particular about the 4 aspects of Shavuot. So the 4 aspects of Shavuot are: 1, creation began on Shavuot; 2, the flood was ended on Shavuot, and the initial Shavuot was Noah giving thanks for dry ground again, and there was a covenant that was given at Shavuot. The covenant given at Shavuot to Noah was that the 4 seasons would be continual, that night and day would continue, that cold and warm would continue perpetually, and that Yah would never flood the earth again. These things were pledged in the book of Jubilees to Noah and the first Shavuot. The covenant not to flood the earth was given on the first Shavuot, or the first recognized Shavuot. Shavuot practiced by Moses reflects on that, because we have 7 weeks, 7 sevens, if you will, leading up to Shavuot, to reflect the 7-fold oath of Yah that he would never flood the earth again, and a 7-fold oath that was given in a bow set in the heavens in 7 colors. And so, and in Genesis 6, Yah swears 7 oaths that he will never flood the earth again. So this is why, and then of course we see Torah being given on Shavuot when Moshe comes down from the mountain to find the people worshiping a golden calf. That was Shavuot as well, the covenant. So we start out with Yah's creation, then the covenant never to destroy it by flood again, then the covenant of the word given at Shavuot with Moshe, and then the covenant of the Ruach given at Pentecost among the disciples, where 3,000 were saved. Okay, let's see. Okay, so left Texas to be in the Arkansas mountains? No, I mean, James, I think that's a pretty good spot. Again, most people who listen to this kind of discussion know whether or not Yah has placed them where they're supposed to be for such a time as this. If you have an uneasy spirit about where you are, then you need to consider where you're going to go. Okay. So Geraldine says that Yah would take us back into the wilderness. I've never heard anyone teach on this before. Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting, Geraldine, but yes, there is the idea that in the coming tribulation, that the remnant is not subject to the wrath of Yah. And in order to be not subject, you must be in the wilderness, a place where Yah can cover you with his wings, right? All right. And Murray asks, okay, could some of this reading be in current times now? And I think the answer is yes. I think most of it's in current times now. Not to say that it hasn't happened before, but I think a lot of the covenant language has not yet occurred that people are going to be, that this is going to happen. Even though Israel tries to pretend that they're the recipient of all of these promises, Israel is what the gospel says, people trying to force themselves into heaven. And so I disagree with the idea that all of these scriptures have been fulfilled in the modern nation of Israel. Okay. Cynthia asks, what will happen to those staying in cities but cannot leave due to caring for elderly family members? Well, Cynthia, that's very interesting because many of us are doing what Yah has called us to do. Sometimes it's taking care of parents. Sometimes it's taking care of families. Sometimes it's serving in a community that's very rough. Nonetheless, that's what Yah has called us to. And if Yah has called you there, then do not be, if you're not moved in your spirit that you're going to be somebody who's going to move into the wilderness, if you feel like Yah has you right where he wants you to be, then that's what he does. He has you right where he wants you to be. And for many believers, that's the case right now. A lot of people have already shifted. They shifted from, draconian, hyper-urban environments to suburbs or farther out. And so this was a good idea on their point. Is the wilderness a good thing? I was told I was made for the wilderness. Well, I'll tell you, doorkeeper, the wilderness can be a good thing. The wilderness is quite often difficult, right? The wilderness can be difficult because the wilderness is anathema to human life. And you have to adapt and adopt techniques that require you to be very, very strong and smart about what you do when you're up against the wilderness, because small mistakes have big, big prices to pay. And anyone who lives in a wilderness environment knows, when the United States was a wilderness environment before it became subdued by internet highways, it was a difficult place, and it took a toll. Many, many people died trying to subdue the wilderness. And so you have to keep that in mind, that even if you're a smart person, you may not survive the wilderness. But being smart, being prepared, and being in a group often helps. Okay. All right. Do I see the people going back to Mount Sinai? No, I don't see them going back to Mount Sinai. Zion and Jerusalem are interesting. Zion is a guidance place. And Jerusalem is a place of peace. That's why it doesn't necessarily mean a stone city in some particular area. It means a place of peace. Okay. And so Baseman asked, is there a difference between Shavuot and Pentecost? No, not really. There isn't. Pentecost means the counting of 50 days, and Shavuot is the counting of 50 days. So it's the same date. Pentecost and Shavuot are the same date. Of course, a lot of it depends on whose calendar you're on, right? If you're on the Gregorian calendar, is it the same as the Jewish calendar? Is that the same as the Zadok calendar, or the Hanukkah calendar, or the lunisolar calendar, or the lunar calendar? Which one is it? And so it depends on which calendar you're on, but typically it's a 50-day count from the counting of the Omer, 50 days, whether in Pentecost or in Shavuot, and it's 50 days of the counting of the Omer from the first Sabbath of the year, from the first Sabbath. Okay. All right. Okay. So with that, my friends, we're going to conclude our discussion on Into the Wilderness. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you again next week when we continue further studies from Sefer Publishing Group. I'm Stephen Pigeon saying thank you for being here. May you be blessed. May your week be blessed. And we'll see you again soon.